Hello everybody, welcome to a live Mondays with Mover. I am Mover, C.W. Lemoyne, author of the Spectre series and the Alex Shepard series. I hope you guys are having a great week. I hope this works. Let me know in the comments if you can hear me loud and clear. Today, very special episode. We got 60,000 subscribers, actually 61.4, something like that. Very excited about that. Thank you so much. We actually did the 10,000 subscriber episode about a year ago. So that's 50,000 subscribers in a year, which is awesome. So I wanted to do part 2 of the F-16 DCS this week, but actually had some issues with the playback. So I'm actually gonna have to refilm the second half of that video. So that'll be coming in the next couple weeks. I'm actually going to Ron Fellows at Spring Mountain this weekend. So it'll probably be about 2 weeks. But today's episode is gonna be awesome. I've got, first up, I've got TBear. So we're gonna try an actual call-in. And I've got TBear, who is probably one of the most influential persons in my entire career. He is the guy that when I was in New Orleans as a student hire, if you've watched the very first How I Became a Fighter Pilot video, he is the person that hired me. So he is the person that gave me my student hire job, helped me get a pilot slot, and has been my mentor throughout. So he is A-10 pilot. He flew the A-10, then he flew the F-16, then he went back to the A-10. Now he's flying T-38s with me. So very excited to have him. He's calling in at 7:06, which I will explain what that means here in a little bit. And then after that, at around 7:30, Gonky's calling in, and Gonky, which you may remember I've interviewed, he's been on DCS stuff, he's a regular on the channel. He'll be in to catch up, we'll figure out what he's been up to, and just talk to him for a little bit. And then at the very end, I've got Tag, who is an F-16 pilot who started his career as a flight surgeon, then became an F-16 pilot, flew the F-16 for a while, and he's currently a flight surgeon. So he'll be able to answer some questions. I'm going to have him tell his story of how he did that, because it's a very unique situation. So looking forward to that. Just to answer a couple questions already, no, you can't call in. I'm just going to answer your questions based on the comments here as we talk. And let's see, while we wait, because we've got about 4 minutes, I'll answer some of your questions. So the first one, how come you're not an F-16 driver anymore? Because I transferred from the Air Force Reserve back in 2012 to the Navy Reserve to fly Hornets. So that's why. It'd be awesome to fly it again, but I don't know that that's in the cards. Let's see. Oh, cool. Super Hornets flew over the Oakland Raiders game. Actually, is the Raiders game? Who's playing tonight? I think it's the Cowboys and the Giants. It must have been yesterday. Anyway, all right. So let's see. Good morning. Hit the thumb up and share. Sure, if you want to do that, that's fine. Dylan asks, when are you going to DCS with me so I can show you how to fight? Probably never. So there's a thing about DCS. I typically don't like to do dogfighting and tactical stuff just because I want to stay well clear of anything that could possibly get me in trouble as an active fighter pilot. So that's why you kind of see me shy away from that. I stick to the basic, very basic stuff. I will do a little bit of BFM, but it's the basic and basic fighter maneuvers just for that reason. So anyway, when you were an F-16 or F-18 pilot, you ever try to get on the Thunderbirds or Blue Angels? No, I did not. Never have. Let's see. Tough to pick one, like picking a favorite child. Which one of your books is the best? Boy, I tell you what. You know, Finney Flight. So this is a cool thing. TBear actually helped me write one of the scenes in Finney Flight. Most recently, there's an A-10 scene where he basically stands off with AAA. And I think that is probably one of the best scenes I've ever written. And TBear was instrumental in that, helping me with some of the A-10-ish stuff in that book and kind of his idea. So I think Finney Flight's probably one of the best ones so far. But the Alex Shepard stuff's real good. You know, it's real different because it's first person versus third person stuff. But for the F-16 stuff, obviously Spectre Rising was the very first one I ever wrote. All right, what else we got? Are the Makos hiring any? I don't know. I can probably find out. I've got some friends that are still doing that, but I don't know when they're having a board. Yeah, guardreservejobs.com and bogeydope.com are really good resources. I don't know if Guard Reserve Jobs is still around, but I know Bogey Dope is. They have a website that you can, with all the hiring boards and dates and stuff, and that helps out. Also, TBear, who's about to call in 50 seconds, TBear is a moderator on a group that I have called Make Them Tell You No on Facebook. So follow me on Facebook, facebook.com/CWLemoyne, and the Make Them Tell You No Facebook group is where you can go and ask some of these specific questions, because I don't have time myself to do it, but I've got a lot of good fighter pilots. Gonky's on there, TBear's on there. I've got a lot of good resources, a lot of good volunteers that are helping to answer your questions. So please consider doing that. Is there any aircraft, either past or present, you'd like to fly? You know, the A-10 has always been kind of my, I always say Moby Dick, but you know, it's the aircraft that I've chased around my entire career. From getting hired in New Orleans at the 706, I got hired at Barksdale right before they closed. I've tried to get hired at Moody a couple years ago. You know, it's the A-10 is definitely probably one of them that, you know, if I had to add one to the stable, it would definitely be that, or maybe even the Raptor. All right, so here's TBear. And y'all let me know if you can hear him. Hey, TBear.
Hey, Mover, how's it going?
Pretty good. Just for the kids at home, you are driving, right? So if we lose you, it's probably because you went through a dead area.
Exactly. I'm driving through Alabama wearing an LSU shirt.
Awesome. Well, TBear, thanks for being on the show. I was just telling everybody about your, you know, how we met and how we know each other. You have flown the A-10 twice, right? Back in the 90s, you did Desert Storm, then you went to the Viper, and then you came back to the A-10 for Afghanistan, OEF, and now you're flying T-38s with me down at Eglin. Is that all accurate?
Yep, that's right. I flew green A-10s the first time and gray A-10s the second.
All right, if you had to pick, this is going to be a stupid question, but if you had to pick, what's your favorite aircraft?
Well, the F-16 is a little sports car.
Yeah.
Nice airplane to take cross country. But I love the A-10 mission more than anything. That is a pretty honorable mission, particularly with the Sandy roll and with the close air support roll. And you get to be an expert in those areas as opposed to the F-16, where you're a jack of all trades, master of none.
What was your favorite? So you talk about there's a lot of missions of the A-10. What was your favorite mission in the A-10?
Well, you know, your primary mission is close air support. Anytime you're out there and you're, you know, able to help guys on the ground, that's a good day. And then, luckily, the CSAR mission, I trained for it a lot and only kind of executed it one time, and it was for a crashed helicopter in Afghanistan. But that's a very honorable mission with a long history back into the A-1s in Vietnam flying the Sandy roll.
Now, would you say, comparing the A-10 with the Viper, which one was more difficult to be good at?
That's an interesting question, because the F-16, it was overall more difficult because you never stayed focused on one thing. We did phase training at the time, and I think they still do, where, you know, you do BFM, then ACM, then DACT, and then you go back to dropping bombs, and then you come back around. And so just when you get good at one phase, you move on to the next phase, and then those skills start deteriorating. So the F-16 was kind of hard to stay good at it. The A-10, the CSAR mission, is a very difficult mission, and particularly the Sandy 2 roll. But at least you're focused on that, and you can train to that regularly, as opposed to the F-16 where you're hitting all around.
Well, okay, real quick, I got a question that made me laugh. Somebody wants to know your thoughts on the new Top Gun movie.
I don't know.
All right, well, we'll pass on that one before you say something politically incorrect.
I'll probably wait till it comes out on Netflix.
Yeah, so you're a moderator on the Make Them Tell You No Facebook group, which is, you know, I think it's awesome that you do that, and we've got a lot of good fighter pilots trying to help, you know, young guys and gals out. One of your emphasis items, which you told me when I was a student hire, right? So you're the one that hired me.
Yeah.
Is perspective. What's important and the reason that you join. Would you have joined if you couldn't have been a fighter pilot? And how did you get hired? Like, how did you get your start?
Okay, So yeah, and you and I have discussed this, and it's been kind of my pet peeve on the make it tell them no site there. When I see someone who says, "Hey, I wanna be an airline pilot, so I think I might join the military to bill my hours to go be an airline pilot." That one really ticks me off, and it's taken a whole lot of restraint from me not to go through the Facebook page and choke them.
Okay.
because I don't want that person in my Air Force or my military. When you join the military, it's a calling. You're chosen to do something to keep the rest of your society free. And you take that burden on, and it's not for everybody, but it is definitely a calling to be a warrior in protection of your country. So, back to your question about me, I always wanted to be a fighter pilot as long as I could remember, but I was not willing to join the active duty Air Force because my fear was, I do have a fear, even though I'm a fighter pilot, I'm afraid of one thing, and that's the cold. I hate cold weather. And my biggest fear was I'd get a KC-135 to Minot, North Dakota, and I would just die up there. So I just kind of put off the idea of joining the military, and then I was working as a loader for a crop duster, and one of our pilots' cousin was a A-10 pilot, and he told me that you can join a reserve unit and go straight to pilot training. So when I found that out, I contacted the F-15 unit in New Orleans and tried to get a pilot slot with them. Well, they were in the middle of a conversion from F-4s to F-15s, and they were trying to get all their backseaters that they could through pilot training, so there was no real slots available. And I thought that was kind of the end of it, and I found out they had a reserve unit on base. So I called up the reserve unit, and I said, "Hey, I'm an A&P mechanic. I got this kind of background. I'm a pilot. What can I do for the United States Air Force Reserve?" Well, expecting that the answer would be, "We need maintenance officers." And I was prepared to do that, but what came back was, "Do you want to fly jets?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "What do you fly?" I didn't even know. And they said, "Oh, it's an A-10." I said, "Oh, that's that ugly thing." And the recruiter said, "Yeah, but it's got a big gun. Come talk to me." And, timing's everything. And I made that phone call about 30 minutes after the unit had called the recruiter and said, "Hey, start looking for a pilot candidate." And just so happens, I called 30 minutes later, and I got an interview, and I got hired.
Wow. Well, okay.
And the point to that I want to make is, I was willing to join the military even if I couldn't fly. And that's really the test I think people should put to it, because even though you join the military to fly, you could find yourself in a situation where you're not flying for whatever reasons, medical, who knows.
Yeah.
And it needs to be a place that you're comfortable being. And, before somebody goes down that path, like we talked about, you need to sit on your back porch and think long and hard. Am I being called to the defense of my country? And if the answer to that's yes, then yeah, go for it. Now, you might as well do something you like doing and fly airplanes.
Yeah. Well, so you kind of, by the way, I guess one thing that you did that you probably shouldn't do in 2019 is if you go to a unit, you probably need to know what they fly. I mean, in the age of internet. But I called I called you directly, right? That's how we met. So
yes, you called me. I was the DO of the 706 Fighter Squadron. Did you tell them why I called it 706?
No, I did. Thanks for reminding me. I told them we'd get back to that. So why don't you explain why we picked the 706?
Well, it's just Air Force squadrons. Most of them are numerical. They're all numerical, but most of them have a number that you can apply to a time. So, for example, we were in the 706 Fighter Squadron, so we chose to make this phone call at 706. If you're in the triple nickel, the 555, you would have made the phone call at 555, and etc. cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So that's just one of the little number games fighter pilots play.
So, I mean, we talk about make them tell you no. When I called you, I mean, is that something that helped? I mean, eventually I got a pilot slot, but, you know, as far as what would you tell guys? I mean, is that a good thing to cold call DOs, or is it just something I got lucky? And, I mean, what's your impression for showing initiative like that?
Well, yeah, I think it is good. I mean, some guys might get aggravated in, you know, today's time of email and social media, but what happened with you, and it'll come when I come back around to it, it's also one of those timing things. You know, you called me, and actually I did tell you no, because...
Yeah, I remember.
Because when you called me, you were like 2.5 years from graduation or something.
Yeah,
I don't remember exactly.
Yeah, I was between sophomore, junior year of college. I was about to go to Tulane. I wanted a job.
Yeah.
I wanted to go fly fighters.
Yeah, and it was just too far out for us. I mean, we weren't even thinking that far. So what I told you was no, because in fact what I said was no. Call me back in 18 months. I think it was 2 years ago. But the thing was, you had the initiative to call me, which I really liked, and I could just tell you had the fire.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I look for in guys is the fire.
Yep.
And I could tell you had it, but the timing was just not right. And that's why I said call back. And at the time, I genuinely hoped that you did call us back in 18 months. But to further this, just so people understand how timing happens sometime, I hung up the phone with you, and my supervisor, the ops group commander, walked in and said, hey, we got this ability to hire these student workers, and GS 5 something, I think.
3. I was a GS3.
GS3. And I go, God, I wish I'd known that before I hung up with that guy. He would have been perfect. And I'm like, what the heck was his name? Oh yeah, I think it was Lemoyne, something or another. And so I had no idea how to get in contact with you. It was a good idea, but I just go, well, I hope he calls back one day. And a couple of days later, a couple of dudes from the Tulane ROTC were in our building, and they walked by my office, and I said, hey, you know this Lemoyne guy? And they go, oh, yeah, he works at the gym. I said, yeah, tell him to call me.
Yeah.
And that's how it happened.
That was when that guy walked up to me in the gym and goes, hey, you know this colonel? Dude, that was probably like the best day of my life. You know, just the way luck and timing works out. But all right, so we got a question for you. How do you feel about Fat Amy replacing the A-10?
Yeah, I can't do that. Well, I mean, she's got her place, but it is not an A-10 replacement. It has its place, but right now, I mean, there are times with the A-10 that you just have to get down and dirty, you know, below the weather, turn the gun on, and, you know, rain some hate on the bad guys. And, you know, I think Fat Amy's got like 156 bullets or something like that.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just not going to replace it.
Yeah. Well, so going back to the A-10, I mean, did you find you've deployed in 2 different types of wars, right? Desert Storm and then Afghanistan.
Right.
How is it different in a more traditional conflict like Desert Storm versus Afghanistan? I mean, is it change your mindset, or is it still you're helping the dudes on the ground no matter what?
Well, you're helping the dudes on the ground no matter what, but the level of risk in Desert Storm was exponential more than Afghanistan. I mean, in Afghanistan, there was essentially no risk. I mean, a guy could hit you with a golden BB, but, I mean, Desert Storm, there were days I remember flying around and I go, wow, it looks just like the old World War II movies where there's little flat clouds bursting. Yeah, I mean, it looked just like the World War II movies. And then, you know, we were having missiles shot at us on a regular basis. the A-10. And so that level of risk was much higher than it was in Afghanistan. So in Afghanistan, you could pretty much just rain hate with impunity. But Desert Storm, when you were doing that, you were putting your pink butt on the line.
Now, but in Afghanistan, it was more high threat for the guys on the ground, right? You could hear shots in the background and know those dudes were in trouble a few times, right?
Yes, you could, but I had the same thing in Desert Storm. One time, I've had the same situation there also.
How do you deal as a pilot, to calm yourself down, not trying to rush and make mistakes? How do you deal with that sense of urgency when stuff's, it's bad and you got to save some lives?
Well, that's where, honestly, that's where the training kicks in. That's where the muscle memory and the procedure and everything else that you train, that's when that comes into effect. You just go in, I don't want to say automatic mode, but you go into you're focused into that mission and taking it all in and figuring out where to put the bullets. I mean, I had one in Afghanistan where we got scrambled, and these guys are screaming, guns going off on the radio. They've already got 3 KIA by the time we get there, and they were facking us in or directing us in on these hilltops, and we basically flew. As soon as we got there, the first thing we did was, when we checked in, was strafe a hilltop. Wow. I mean, we just went right into the hilltop, and to try to, get them to quit shooting at the friendlies.
Yeah. In fact, someone's just asking about what's it like talking to a scared JTAC or guys in combat on the ground. I mean, have you ever had to calm them down? Where you're,
No.
Always professional, always. I mean, you've never, basically both sides are just having their training kick in, right?
Yes, I have never had a scared JTAC on the ground. They were always professional, always calm, sometimes out of breath and running, but always professional. And the only thing I ever had one time, that when I was saying we ran the CSAR in Afghanistan, the downed helicopter, we got, there were 28 guys on it, and we got 27 of them out, and they left the JTAC with the helicopter.
Oh, man.
And he was on the ground by himself for a while, and we're flying around, and, every now and then he'd just call up. I don't remember what our call sign was, but he would call us up and say, hey, just want to check, make sure you guys are still there.
Hey, so this is an interesting question. Someone just asked, have you ever heard about Bob Swain Jr.?
About what?
Robert Swain Jr. Does that name ring a bell?
Bobo. When I was a lieutenant, Bobo was the captain in the squadron. He was in Desert Storm with me. He was later our squadron commander, I think our OG, and then our wing commander. Then he went on, did some work at AFRAC, and he became the Westover wing commander and retired as a BG. But what they're asking about is he shot down a helicopter with an A-10.
Yes. Yeah.
It was, by the way, it was the only A-10 in our fleet that did not have a gun camera in it.
Oh, no. Oh, jeez. Wow.
Aircraft 205, it's on a pole at the Air Force Academy now.
Oh, cool. Well, so they're asking, do you have NVGs in Desert Storm? Do you fly night?
We flew nights, but we did not have NVGs, and it was amazing the techniques that we developed to employ at night with no NVGs and no targeting pods.
Oh, how low does the A-10 go? Like what's
100 feet.
Jesus Christ! Wow, that's awesome.
I mean, that's the training. We train down to 100 feet. The reality is, if you were in a high-threat environment, you would just go as low as you could to, try to confuse the radars.
Wow.
And sneak in.
What would you say so, I mean, you spent some time out of the jet and got yourself back, flying T-38s. when things are not going your way, I mean, what's your advice for, when you're in a part of your career where it's not where you want it to be, but, you're looking ahead? What would you say to somebody like that?
Well, big things, don't give up. Just like when you're in that third turn of two-circle BFM at, 8+ G's and you can't catch your breath, you just can't give up. And you have to keep pressing ahead. You keep your integrity and you keep your head up and you keep plugging away.
Yeah.
The other option is you just quit.
Yeah.
If you're a quitter, I don't want you around anyway.
So, speaking of quitting, you're not quitting, but, retirement's on the horizon. What's next for TBear? What kind of flying you doing as the sun sets?
Well, as you know, I've been crop dusting for a couple of years now as a part-time gig, and I'm thinking about retiring from the civil service, the full-time side, which would probably result in me not flying in the Air Force anymore. But I think I'm going to stick around as a TR for a couple of years if they let me. And I'll fly air tractor crop dusters. And I also have another little part-time gig flying a Citation Bravo for a company, just hauling customers around.
So somebody asked me, at retirement, if you look back, what airplane, past, present, or future, would you have loved to have flown that you never got a chance to? Well, besides the A-10 and the Viper, what would you have wanted to fly?
I think I would have loved to have flown a A-1 in Vietnam.
Wow. Yeah.
I think that would have been. I know it's not a fast jet, but I think that mission and what those guys did was just incredible.
Yeah. Well, it's in your blood, right? So you went from close air support with people to close air support with bugs in the.
Yeah, I was a little worried about myself because I said, I've spent my entire military career either training or actually killing things with an airplane, and then my next career, I'm killing things with an airplane.
So before I let you go, I appreciate your time. Parting shots, what advice you got for, somebody watching this channel that's maybe thinking about a career or thinking about, what to fly or what, besides what we already talked about. But, you got any last words of wisdom beyond what you give them on the Facebook group?
Well, the big thing is if you're going the military route, make sure, it's the right path for you and you have that calling. Otherwise, you're not going to be in the right place. And if it is not, if you're trying to do the civilian thing, is don't give up. It is going to be a tough road to hoe. You're going to be, eating ramen for a while, trying to get your flying time built up to the point where you can have a good civilian job. And the big thing is you can't give up. You got to keep the goal in sight and keep moving towards it. One thing I do want to tell you, just to put the little warrior ethos out there. When I have a hero in the military. Never met the guy. I don't know his name. But when I started flying A-10s, one of our bosses there was he was a DO. He was a OV-10 FAC in Vietnam, and he told me this story about one day he was flying over a special forces camp out in the jungle that was being overrun by North Vietnamese regulars. And it had gotten so bad that they had retreated to their bunkers and called in artillery on their own position. So they were just hunkered down hoping the artillery would kill more of the bad guys than them. And he had a 3-ship of F-100s check in with Nate, which is napalm. And he gave him the 9-line, told him what was going on. And he said, I need you to hold. I'm trying to get the artillery turned off. And he's coordinating on another radio. And he could not get the artillery turned off, and these guys on the ground are dying. So eventually the F-100 flight lead told the FAC, he said, just clear us in. I'll worry about the artillery. And he brought his 3-ship F-100s in there, while the bullets were hitting the ground from the artillery guns, he just, he just took the risk on the big sky theory and laid their nape in there, and they actually saved all those dudes in that special forces camp because they took the risk of catching an artillery shell with their jet to get the nape down there, and they saved the day. And I don't know who that guy is, don't know his name, know nothing about him except he's F-100 guy. And
Jesus.
My whole career, that was kind of what I looked at. It's like, if there's guys on the ground dying, then I just got to do whatever it takes to protect them. And that is the kind of thought you have to have if you decide to choose this way of life.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Well, TBear, we appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and thank you for, thank you for my career. Thanks for everything you've done for me, and thank you. And in exchange, we look at what we've done for, all these people that didn't know about the profession and about being a fighter pilot. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to, and we'll get together on an episode one day.
Yeah, we got some good stories we've been saving. I was not allowed to use the good ones on this one, so we'll get to those. Right? We got a MiG-29 story.
Yep.
All right. Well, hey, Gonky's calling. Thanks so much, TBear.
All right, tell Gonky hi.
All right, we'll see you.
See ya.
Hello, Gonky. You're just in time.
Hey, Mover, what's up, man? Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear us?
Yeah. I got you.
We were just in the midst of an awesome TBear story, and I had to let him finish.
Which one?
Well, no, this was about an F-100 guy that basically inspired TBear to be the guy that he was. And somebody says, hi, Donkey. It's Gonky. G-O.
It's all right, man. People get it mixed up all the time.
Oh, Gronky. My Siri calls you Gwonky, and I don't know why, because it's spelled Gonky in there. But hey, man, so glad to have you on the channel. Where you been?
Well, I've been out in Vegas for about 2.5 months.
Gambling your life away?
Probably make more money doing that. But, no, I was out there learning how to fly the Airbus.
The Airbus? That's not very fighter pilot-ish.
No, you know what? I'm dying to fly the T-38, and I don't know how I would say that.
Oh, wait, hold on a second. Somebody just said they dig my shirt. I'm wearing the, we got new 301st Friday shirts.
Yeah.
And Bullet. So we're making it for the kids at home. We're making a Teespring store and an eBay store so you can buy all the fighter squadron stuff like it's an air show. So this shirt, which it has some stuff on the back and it's got the T-38, will all be available, and 100% of the proceeds are going to go to the Snacko. So you'll get an RMO, a patch, all that crap. So anyway, that's my 30-second commercial for that. But somebody just reminded me. That might have actually been Bullet as an audience plant. But so
I need a shirt.
So anyway, you've been flying Frenchie, the Airbus.
Yeah.
Do you miss flying fighters these days?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. There was one other fighter guy in my class, Canadian, but we don't hold that against him. But so we hung out together and spoke of how awesome we used to be, and such is life.
Yeah. Well. So anyway, you've been doing that. Is that going to be? That's just a part-time, full-time gig, right? That's to give you some more flying to do on the side.
Mover, I'm like you. I've got like 8 part-time jobs. I'd probably have more time off if I just had one full-time job, but I've got in my head I can never be full-time. I always have to be part-time. But
hey, so question from the audience: what's your favorite Russian jet?
My favorite Russian jet, I like the Su-30, man. That thing's pretty awesome.
That's true, and Gonky flew that in FiniFlight.
Yes, I did. I've seen that airplane in person, and it is just a menacing, angry, and majestic airplane all at the same time.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. You got to fight flankers. I've used your video in a couple. You've gotten to fight them, right? We talked about that before.
Yeah, I have. It was incredible. I had to get out of the Navy to actually go fight Russian jets. It's kind of funny, but yeah, it was awesome. It's just as menacing of a machine when you're fighting it as it is just there on the ramp looking at it.
So Yellow Dog Adventures asks, is Gonky going to be flying for Allegiant? If so, can he hook me up with some Raiders tickets in the new stadium?
I'm literally the most junior guy. I have 0 pull, but I will do my best.
But you're getting recognized out in public now, right? Gonky and Donkey is actually more popular than Mover.
No. Actually, I'm running into people that know you. So, and then as we discuss you, I'm like I'm like the scratch. Like, oh, wait a minute. You're one of these books. I'm like, yeah, I do a little cameo.
Dude, we've got 3 questions. One of whom is definitely a plant who's trying to stir stuff. Wants to know how you got your Gonky. I think that's classified, right? You got to have booze. Yeah. Doug says Gonky's call sign will get me demonetized. That's what. Yeah. We'll get. We're not going to do that one. No, we won't.
My parents might see this.
Yeah. Aviation and other stuff wants to know, would Gonky fly Fat Amy?
I imagine he's talking about the F-35.
That's correct, sir.
In my younger days, I would, but I there's a soft spot in my heart for the gentlemanly way to do battle, and that's I've seen 5th gen fight, and it's just not fun to me. I get it. You're killing everybody, which is probably fun, but I like to merge with people and fight. So I think I'd probably stick with the old airplanes.
Yeah. Wow.
That's just me.
Would you go back and fly the Hornet again if you could?
Oh yeah, dude. Right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Of course. In heaven, I'm gonna fly one every day.
Oh wow. Yeah. So they're asking why we call it Fat Amy.
Well, just look at it.
Yeah. So it's based off of the character, the Fat Amy character, large and a little bit thick.
She's built in the Midwest.
She's a thick girl. They wanted. Someone's asking, would you fly the Super Hornet? But didn't you fly the Super Hornet?
I did. Yeah, I flew all the Hornets except the Growler. I didn't fly the G model. I flew the A2F.
Yeah. What was your favorite of those?
It depends. It depends on what you want to do. I mean, if you're going to war, they're even better now. But the latest and greatest Super Hornet is It's like a little mini Death Star, and then you get like 4 or 5 of them all working together, and it's incredible. But if I'm just going to have fun, I like the old ones, the old A models that we flew at 204. Those are a lot of fun.
Did you ever get to fight a Tomcat? Was that before your time?
Yeah, before my time. Well, they were around in my time, but they weren't in my air wing.
Would you fly a Tomcat if given the opportunity?
Yeah, I'm one of those guys. Honestly, I mean, I'd love to fly all the fighters, but there's just not enough years in my life to do that. So yeah, anything gray, pointy nose with afterburner, sign me up. I'd like to at least fly it once. Yeah,
well, hell yeah. I mean, but I think they're asking more if you'd go through the pain of a TX course. But so Air Force and Navy, talk about the differences in how you transition to different aircraft. Navy treats you a little bit different than the Air Force. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, the people. I would say that the pilots in the Navy and Air Force, we're all cut from the same cloth, but the system that we're operating are a lot different. The Navy is way more gentlemanly. We would always, like, I've trained F-15 guys, I've trained A-10 guys, I've trained Strike Eagle guys, and every single one of them, I treated them with a lot of respect. And honestly, I mean, they already passed the ride, if you will,
Right.
by just showing up, because I know they're professionals.
By having wings, right? The wings kind of get you the cost of entry.
Yeah. Like, I mean, I did some fighter stuff with an F-15 guy, and I mean, I'm a Hornet guy. This dude spent 15 years of extreme pain doing the air-to-air game in the Eagle. It's like, I'm not really going to teach him a whole lot. I'm just going to show him what the Hornet can do, and then, professional courtesy, and send him on his way. Same thing with the A-10 guy, man. We went out and dropped bombs. I'm like, I'm just going to show him how the Hornet does it. Like, I know he knows how to get in the range and do all that stuff, and, probably better than I do, but that doesn't exist in the Air Force. They don't really have professional courtesy. It's, they put on the examiner hat, and all of a sudden they're like, they're the nasty cop. So I don't get it, man. I don't get it at all.
So a couple questions for you from the audience. Would you rather fly for the airlines or an ad-air company?
You know what? I'd rather fly for an ad-air company if it was right in my backyard.
Yeah, touche.
We're all about quality of life as we get older, and that's kind of where I'm at now, which is where the old Airbus gig falls into it. So,
they would like to know a couple questions. Do you drive a ZR1?
No, I don't, but Mover does.
Yeah, touche. So what do you drive? It's an IROC Camaro, right?
No, so that's my very first car. I've never sold my first car. I dumped all my money into it as a high school kid.
And you're still broke.
I still have it, because one day I have dreams of like totally restoring it and just driving around on nice days. I drive a diesel pickup truck.
Nice.
And I ride a Harley. That's how I get around.
Hell
Harley
yeah.
and a diesel pickup truck.
And dirt bikes, right? That's where you're famous for, is your dirt biking?
Not famous, but that's what I do for fun, and it helps keep me young.
So Viper versus Hornet. You ever fought them?
I have.
What do you think?
The Viper is it's a lot like the Hornet. It's small, nimble, maneuverable. It has its strengths and its weaknesses. And honestly, the guy that's going to win is the guy who's flying the airplane better that day. To be honest, I mean they're pretty equally matched.
Yeah. No,
in my opinion.
I agree with that. Especially, what is the first? Hold on. What is the first airplane ever that you took the stick on? So does that mean yoke aircraft are not included in that question?
The first airplane I ever flew was a stick. That was a Diamond DA-20 Katana. Great little airplane. Great little airplane.
Gonky, Malaysian Hornet versus Super Hornet.
Well, that's a tough one. I mean, if we're talking combat, like I said, the latest and greatest.
Most people, when they ask these questions, are talking about BFM, because that's all that exists in this world. It's BFM.
They're very close. So again, I would say the better pilot. But if you looked at just the numbers on paper, the Malaysian Hornet's better.
Yeah.
In my opinion, because I've flown them both, and the Malaysian Hornets had more powerful engines, and they were a little lighter because they were a little lighter. And the Malaysians did a pretty nice upgrade to their airplane before I left. But if we're just talking BFM, I would definitely want to be in the Malaysian Hornet against the Super Hornet. But that's just me.
Do you have any hobbies, sir?
Motorcycles. I love motorcycles.
Nice. Well, we appreciate your time, Gonky. Before we let you go, because I know you're a very busy man trying to catch up with the wife and whatnot. What advice do you have for the kids at home? And also, how much do you bench? Go with your data.
I haven't benched in a long time, man.
That's a real question, dude. I'm not making that up. Somebody really wants to know.
Somebody knows me then, man. When I was younger, I could bench a lot, like almost 400 pounds.
Yeah.
Now, I can do about 15 push-ups and we're good. But,
nice.
I would say, some of your viewers have emailed me and stuff, and that's cool, and I try to help. But it's kind of like what you've been saying, Mover. You can't control certain things, so don't focus on that. Keep your head down. Try to be and do the best you can.
Yep.
And let chips fall. At least if for some reason you don't make it, you can sleep soundly at night. That's how I've always done things. And that's how you should do things, anything in life, really. So that's it, man. Keep your head down and keep trying, and don't sweat the things you can't control.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate it. Tag's calling. We'll talk to you later.
Take it easy, man. See ya.
See ya. All right, Tag, you're on with Mondays with Mover. How are you, sir?
Mover, I'm doing great, brother. What's going on?
It's like bam, bam, bam. These guests have been so awesome. So we saved the best for last, and we just had a question about someone who wants to follow in your footsteps and doesn't even know you're on the show. So
let's hear it, man.
I was just telling them, you have a rather unusual story. You started life as a flight surgeon and then became an F-16 pilot, and that's how you and I met at the B course, right? You were different classes.
That's exactly right. Yeah, you were a little out in front, so to speak. But yeah, man. I mean, we all have a story, and I've learned about your channel and what you're doing. I think it's shit hot. I really do. And but yeah, I mean, we all have a story, and so my story is exactly that. I wanted to do something in the military. Growing up, I always wanted to fly, and I always wanted to be a doc. So I actually applied to both at the same time. Not knowing my chances, I felt competitive in both, but I didn't hear back from the recruiter really. Got accepted to med school and sort of started that path. And then about 6 months into med school, got a call from the recruiter, and he's like, I got to tell you something. You're going to have to sit down. I got you into pilot training. I'm like, well, you're going to have to sit down because I'm in the middle of $200,000 of debt right now. But so it didn't work out at that time, but he did push me on over to a flight doc who was a pilot position, and I learned more and more about that program. And since then, learned a lot of guys in the community, and that's exactly what I did. I went active duty, did flight medicine. I got assigned down to Kelly. Even though I was active duty, I was attached to the Kelly Guard down there, and so my first assignment was with those guys, with the Viper and the B course, and just seeing those guys go through the course, and it just really made me want to even push forward even that much more. But
oh yeah,
so not to make the story too drawn out, but the commander there ran into the OG. Actually, I was down there telling him I would love to fly and whatnot, but the commander ran into some medical issues, and it just so happened that you call the right guy up at Right Pat, and he kind of helped me out, and I went back and told the OG the story. Within days I told him, hey, listen, I think I'm going to be able to get you a waiver, and this is one of those stories that you hear about, or at least for me, it engraved in not only my mind but my heart of wanting to do things for other people.
Yeah,
and that's exactly what he did for me. He sat me down and said, man, thanks for helping me out, and I want to help you out. If you put in the work, put in the application, and do what you need to do, I'll make a call at least to give you, that one side of sometimes all we need is just someone to really kind of speak a word for you, or kind of push open a door just so you can kind of push forward. And so, yeah, man. So what's this gentleman or gal wanting to do? Where are they at? What's their question?
No, he was asking. Oh man, I've got to scroll up so much.
Don't even worry.
We'll get back to him. Re-ask your question, because he just said, "Oh my God, this is meant to be," because he didn't know you were going to be on the show.
Meant to be. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you have just become serendipitous, right? Is that a thing? So, you going back to you, because I think your story. I mean, not to blow smoke up your ass.
No, we love talking about ourselves. Let me tell you more about.
Yeah, first rule of fighter pilot, we got to talk about ourselves. But so you went and flew the Viper, and then for a while there, you were doing both, right? You were actually a flight doc and.
Yeah, so I held the dual code. It's called a Victor code. 48R is a resident flight surgeon, or whatever you want to call it, and then the Victor code is a dually rated pilot position. And so I held that for a while and was able to kind of hold both. Well, I am a civilian ophthalmologist, and one of the reasons I fell into ophthalmology, honestly, I mean, I thought about it even at a young age, but we look at so many of our guys that wash out. It's normally a vision problem of some sort. Now, you always have the guys around that you meet, and they're like, I wasn't able to be a fighter pilot because of my vision, and I would chat that off to people who just didn't try, and guys, just are excuses. But there are a lot of great people that do get held up, at least in the initial waiver application package, due to their vision for some reason or not. And most of the time, if you just hang in there, not just vision, but as there's a lot of things that are waiverable and even accepted as new asset or an untrained asset versus someone who's been on for a while retention wise. But anyway, man, I did both for a while, and I was actually sitting over an alert mission over in Iraq when I was trying to figure out. I had about 4 more months of active orders left, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. And I started putting in applications to do ophthalmology. Got accepted up in Nashville at Vanderbilt, and actually left flying for just a little bit and was just flight docking. And then once I kind of got through the program, got re-upped in the Viper and flew for a little bit of time. And timing, like everything, is everything. And so right now I'm doing the dock gig only. Just it's difficult to fly the Viper well. Regardless, it is a full-time job, and there's a lot of great guys out there that do it very well. But to try to do it part-time in another full-time profession, it's just difficult. And I'm just that just to be honest, I'm just not good enough to be able to, to be honest with you.
I found Derek's question. So he wants to know, what do you think about a pre-med dude becoming fixed-wing pilot? I want to fly as long as I can, or will let me, then transition into being a flight doc for the squadron. So he wants to actually do it the other way. Do you think what do you think about that?
That is the more traditional way. Until maybe recently, I'm probably the only guy that at the time that was a doc first and then did the pilot gig, simply because of age. Now the age waiver thing has been pushed out from 27 all the way up in the 30s now or whatnot. But if you just look at the timeline to dedicate to be a doc itself, you're looking not only beyond college of 4, but plus 4 for med school, and then probably 4 for a residency. That you're getting a little up there in age. But so most guys that I know, even kind of what I would consider the guys that sort of helped me or introduced me to the pilot physician program, which is an AFI. It's covered. It's not just something that a couple guys put together. It is definitely a instruction that we follow. But with that being said, I think if you try to do it as a pilot first, now the commitment has increased as well. So you got to factor all these things in life, and I think it's good to have all that. But if you look at it used to be 8 years for active duty commitment. Now it's 10.
Yeah.
So you're looking at doing 10 years of flying, which is great. I mean, you should want to do that, and then try to get into med school, do all that again, plus residency later in life, plus or minus a kid. Or for me, I have a child now, so you got to think through some of that stuff. And then again, as much as I would never want to crush anyone's dream, but I'm not that guy. But I would just say, just with anything that you're going to think through, just think through it realistically and kind of chart your path and have it out there to be able to make it yours, and don't let anyone, like you say, and it's so real because we live this, don't let anyone kind of steer you one way or the other. Just not only make them tell but just keep pushing forward. And if that's what you want, there's a lot of great guys out there that are going to help you get there. You can't do it on your own. If you learn anything off this channel, I hope you're teaching these guys not only about telling them no, but you got to work together. And for me, I wouldn't be where I am if there weren't a lot of guys and gals out there that stood up whenever I either didn't believe in myself or didn't know what to believe in, because there wasn't the internet as much when I went through to kind of have all access like they have to you now. And so good on you for doing what you're doing, brother.
Well, so I've got, because I said the magic words flight doc, there's a lot of very specific questions, and
waiver.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it boils down to the waiver guide is a guide, right? I mean, people. Yes. I think the real answer is just put yourself out there and try, because you've got a lot of opinions, just like in anything else. I mean, if you just came to if you went to 3 civilian docs for any given illness, you're going to get 4 different answers. And so there are definitely guidelines to follow. There's definitely some things that are not in the quote gray area that could be black or white. I mean, if you got a heart condition, you got certain things that are going to put yourself at risk or some other person safety at risk, and that's a no-brainer. But there's a lot of things out there that are written
for like you said, as a way to walk through some of this for mostly new assets or whatnot. But if you just push through and make someone explain it to you and someone just look at it, because sometimes it just doesn't make sense. And I could give you so many examples of people who could have given up and pushed through. I mean, I've got guys that were colorblind, straight up colorblind, and that is non-waiverable, and people got waivers for it. So you may not fly the exact aircraft that you want or do the exact mission, but there's things out that you can do.
That was just a question. How easy is it to get a waiver for color vision? There you go. I was talking to Steve, who has been helping. He's the guy who told me no originally. Everything's waiverable. It's the vision requirements aren't even 20 anything anymore. It's as long as
it's -3 now. Plus, I mean, you should have never went off at 20 whatever anyway, 2020, 2050, 20, whatever. It should be off for your refraction. But those things, we are human. We're learning as we go. The standards, I wouldn't say the standards change, but our needs in the Air Force change. So thus, you can become a little bit more selective or a little less. I'll tell you a quick story. When I was looking at trying to go, and when I applied both to med school and to pilot training, active duty, I went to my recruiter, and when I walked in, told him what I wanted to do, and he said, "Hey, listen, you look pretty good on paper, but I'm just going to think, maybe a navigator would be good for you." And I'm like, "Really? Why do you think that?" He was like, "Well, typically the Air Force at the time, the numbers may be skewed now or different one way or the other, because we give out 1,100 slots in the Air Force. 550, exactly 50% go to the academy. Now, if you went to the Air Force Academy, normally there's only 450 people that are eligible. The other 100 they give waivers to because they don't want to lose those slots. This is just what the gentleman's telling me. He goes, out of the other 550, we give some to ROTC, and then you're looking at maybe 200 to OTS. I was just a civilian guy, so I was looking at going to OTS. And he said the majority of those go out on the first board. Well, you're already on the second board, so your chances are pretty slim. He goes, there may be 100 slots left, and I kind of left there. Initially, when I left, I was a little defeated. But this is the attitude I think you got to pass to the people that are listening, is that on the way home, I started thinking to myself, you know what? I mean, one, you do have to believe in yourself, and that's not just being overly cocky. It's just believe in yourself. And
if you don't believe in yourself, no one else will. Yeah.
That's exactly right. And so I'm driving home, I'm like, if there's 100 slots out there, that means one of those, not to curse on but one of them are mine. So that means 99 other people are going to have to figure it out. And that's the way I looked at it. It was a delayed process, and I did get the spot, but I couldn't take it at that time. But that's really what you have to go into it. People are going to throw up roadblocks sometimes because they just don't know, and sometimes saying no is an easy answer. Yeah. And if you're able to take that answer that easily, then you probably don't need to be flying at least in the. You don't need to be in my Air Force. It's just the mentality you got to have.
There's a couple generic questions. Is it, I'm going to answer this almost for you, but I want to hear your answer. How easy is it to get a hearing waiver? And what is the limit on the number of waivers you can have? And I think that goes to exactly what you were just saying about, just try. Stop asking. These questions don't matter. Just keep pushing.
Yeah, you're asking questions that you don't have the particular answer to, meaning like, let's just talk about hearing. We all know that hearing, you have hearing shifts, you can go get audiology reports, you get signed up, next thing you know, you may require some type of documentation for it, but like you said, it may be a simple, indefinite waiver. It may be something that needs to be done every certain, you will have your hearing checks as a pilot every year, but those are things, if you're willing to give up because someone for a hearing waiver,
or on YouTube. Honestly, the answer you have to tell yourself is yes.
That's a good point. If you're willing to listen to what I say, never have met me, or even you, and I know you do this, and I know you put your heart into it.
I say this all the time.
Well, good.
Yeah, don't listen to YouTube. Use this to motivate yourself, not to motivate, yourself.
Maybe as a source of information, just to give you, especially for guys that are. I think if you're going when you split it and you say, do I want to do active duty or do I want to do the guard? It was, and I think it still is the best kept secret.
Yeah.
But one of the scariest things, because I'm sort of an introverted dude, and it's a little bit, and initially out of all the things that I've done, the idea of walking into a squadron not knowing anyone is a little bit it can be overwhelming. I would have never let it hinder me or stop me from doing what I did, getting a pilot slot. But I mean, the thing is that, sometimes you just, if anything, number one, I would say, know your damn weaknesses and let someone else, be humble and let someone else find your strengths for you. And I think if you approach life just being, especially in the military, especially in our community, we all have egos, and some of that is stereotype, because I've known some of the best guys ever to fly the aircraft especially my squadron, the best guys ever. And I don't mean just the F-16. I was associated with F-15 guys, and there's a lot of kind of fraternal rivalry there. But again, just great, humble, approachable dudes. And that's what you want to be. And you want to be able to do that and be valid. I think that's one of the reasons why I stopped flying. You want to, of course we love flying, but you want to be valid at what you're doing. And
right.
So,
you want to be, you don't want to be the guy that's
you don't want to be that guy.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, exactly.
You're going to fly with tag today and everybody be like,
oh, no, you need a seeing eye wingman. Hey,
exactly right.
So this question has been asked quite a few times. How do you deal?
C8. It's a C8, if they're wondering.
We'll get to that in a second.
Not a C. All right.
So they want to know, how do you deal with grounding a guy? Is it something? Obviously you're doing everything you can, so it's not like you're. But yeah, how do you cope with that?
How do I cope with it? Well, I think you said it best right then. Our job is to keep guys flying, period. And then I think the whole reason for the flight surgeon, instead of just being a doc in the hospital or on base, is that you're in with those guys. One of the reasons why I was attracted to saying, okay, well, I'll do the flight doc gig, because they were like, hey man, you may not get to fly. I thought once I turned the active duty sign off and kind of pushed through with med school, I thought maybe I'd never fly again. But when the flight doc told me, he said, you will be in the squadron, you will be seen as one of the bros, and you will get up